The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky, and we are back with another episode. Today, I'm very excited to have Andrei Zinkevich joining us. Andrei, welcome.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah, so Andrei, you're the co-founder of FullFunnel.io, where you help B2B companies generate demand and leads. Your expertise has been featured in many different publications, Marketing Prof, Sales Hacker, Conversion XL, the list goes on. You also authored a book called LinkedIn Content Marketing, How to Generate High Quality B2B Leads on LinkedIn without cold messaging and ads. We're going to dive into all of that and a lot more because I know listeners want to learn how to fill their pipeline with high quality leads. But before we do that, let's go back in time a little bit. Before you started Full Funnel, and maybe even before your other companies that you've been involved with, kind of walk us through, how did you get into the world of B2B marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I want to share that I didn't start my career in marketing, which is not that obvious for many people. I actually started in sales. I spent first 5 years in sales, started as a, let's say, standard path, right? SDR, sales development representative. So I was in charge of, let's say, field marketing and field sales. And for 5 years, I was just wearing sales shoes. But the biggest benefit I realized after, years spending in marketing, I realized that the biggest benefit of being 5 years in sales was actually understanding the sales process and all the hurdles sales people face every day. Salespeople are in trenches, right? And they have only one metric. They could be judged, right? Evaluated. It's revenue. Exactly. Yeah. Nobody cares about how many calls did you make, right? Or how many messages or emails did you send, let's say, meetups attended or whatever. So basically, your goal is to hit the revenue quota. And lots of marketers, unfortunately, in B2B space, right? I would be talking only about B2B. Lots of marketers who never wear sales shoes, they have zero idea about what's happening in trenches, right? About the challenges salespeople face. So after 5 years, I actually realized, as I mentioned, I was as well in charge of field marketing. And for me, the biggest question was, how in many organizations, we have this company-centric mindset. Look, we have the best product in our category, and basically we hired you just to sell it, right? That's your goal, to sell our product. Mm-hmm. But for me, the biggest question was why other companies are going to select other vendors, let's say, not our product. So why do they purchase? What are the reasons? I was always curious. And if there are any chances that somehow we can create demand for our product, right? So that was bothering me. And that was a huge motivation to move towards marketing, right? So I spent 8 years in corporations, and basically I climbed that corporate ladder from SDR to chief marketing officer. And at some point, it was like a natural switch to consulting. I didn't have, at one point, I didn't have that idea, okay, I want to become a consultant, or I want to start an agency. I never had this idea. It was a natural evaluation from what I was doing, When you are climbing that ladder, you are making more connections in the professional world. And at some point, people were referring to me, whenever somebody had a marketing problem, they said, talk to Andrei, I have Andrei, he's CMO at that company, he might help. Right. And at some point, I just, as a side, if you can call it as a side project, right? I started to do some consultations. Some people, I never asked, I never charged for these consultations, but people were saying, okay, how can we, we want to pay for this. If just let us know what would be a fair price, whatever. And then I thought, okay, probably something might be out of it. But at the same time, to be honest, my last years at corporation, I worked at that time for Biosphere Corporation. I feel that I'm getting, stuck. I'm not developing. And it's like, how it's called.
When you say not developing, do you mean you weren't developing mentally in a certain, like learning new things and being challenged?
Exactly. Right. Because the problem is, I would describe my experience when I joined, first of all, Kimberly-Clark Corporation as SDR, right? It was so fun. You were in trenches, you were talking to people, you were doing sales, and you saw the impact. Of course, it was a small scope in terms of company's revenue, but you saw that impact, right? And then you were climbing that ladder. And the biggest problem was, let's say, the higher position you have in that corporation org structure, right? The problem is that the more time you'll spend on endless meetings, on business trips, on calls, on whatever, like useless conferences, right? Because you must attend. And that was the biggest problem. So I would say 80% of my time the last year was, I could spend it way more productive. That was the problem. And I wasn't developing as a marketer. And I thought, okay, so this is definitely not going into the right direction, and I want to change it. That was my biggest motivation.
When you decide to make that shift from being an executive in the corporate world to starting your own consultancy kind of agency, what was the biggest challenge? Was there any big concern, like from a mindset perspective, any fears, or just anything that was really hard for you at the beginning?
I was like, something that I need to share. I always prefer to have plan B. That was my core motivation, even first of all, when I switched from sales to marketing, right? And I was planning, let's say I was in charge of marketing planning. So I always created plan B. I shared plan A, got approval, right? Got alignment, got budget, but I always had plan B if things or campaigns were not performed the way I was expecting, right? I could easily change this. And the same was here. So out of curiosity, I start writing. And in most cases, I just started with guest posts. I didn't have blog. I didn't have anything. I just started, to submit articles to some well-known local marketing newspaper, business journals, business magazines, marketing magazines, etc.
Was this in English or in different language?
No. It was in Polish.
In Polish,
initially.
okay.
Yeah, it wasn't English. So to be honest, I started to publish content in English in 2017, not so it was almost 5 years ago, right? So I just, at that point, somehow I have heard that you need to have newsletter because this is kind of direct communication with your audience. You shouldn't have blog, but this is a way to communicate with your audience, to share your experience, right? Get feedback, etc. And I always included, so I created a free account on MailChimp, and just told people like, always edit a link if you want to sign up. Here is the link. And that's it. So at the point when I left my corporate day job, and I didn't post my content on Facebook, on LinkedIn, whatever. I didn't do what we call thought leadership, right? I was surprised that I had around 1K basically subscribers, which was like good enough to start with, right? So I did like a quick validation saying, hey guys, I basically going to leave my corporate day job, and I want to start this consultant as a full-time. So let me know if anybody is interested. This is a list of questions I can help you with. I didn't have a structured program, to be honest. So I just said like, it could be kind of, let's say, marketing advice. So every time we could just sit down, define all your challenges and then work on them. That was it. Actually, out of that email, I generated 3 clients, and all the rest is history.
So I want to dig into that. And I also want, right now, like our conversation is pretty high level. I want to zoom in to extract a lot of your knowledge and expertise with more specific tactics and kind of what you're doing today and what you're doing with your clients to really make this valuable for everyone. But this one example, I think is actually a really great one. So you decided even before you left your job to start a newsletter, you were writing different publications, you were just linking, or not even linking, I don't know if it was online or in print, but as you're writing these guest posts, you would always have kind of a byline saying, I have a newsletter, sign up here. So people might click that or go to it. They join your newsletter. After a period, like how long did it take you to get to 1,000 people on that list?
So it probably took me around 2 years to be honest.
Awesome. So 24 months in, 2 years in, you have about 1,000 people on this list. You announced to your list, hey, I'm thinking about leaving my day job. And then tell me, you said that you asked a few questions. Like what was the content of that email? And was it just one email that you sent, or did you have a series of emails that you sent that helped you get that number of clients?
If you want to dive deeply here, so the process was, of course, I described, I gave just a high level overview. But basically, what I did at that time, what I loved about MailChimp is that I don't know if they have this feature now, but at that time, they just provided a score of every subscriber you had in your database. Basically, right. If they opened your emails and if they clicked the links, right? Yeah. Because if it was guest post, of course, I linked back to it. And that gave me kind of credibility, right? And social proof that this publication published my content.
Sure.
So MailChimp gave a score. I don't know what was the formula, but it doesn't matter. So
MailChimp still has like a star rating. So it'll show you the number of stars based on engagement, stuff like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So my next step was, I was thinking, okay, what if I will just select people that have 5 stars on my list, right? And reach them out. So I just downloaded that list, with 5 stars and 4 stars people. And then I just manually checked, tried to check their profiles on LinkedIn and on Facebook or Twitter if I could find these people, right? And then excluded marketers because marketers wasn't my target audience, right? So I wanted to find and basically B2B entrepreneurs. I didn't think at that space about niche segmentation, focusing on a specific market.
Right.
I just wanted to find B2B entrepreneurs. So my next step was I reached out manually to some of the people, and it was probably I still have that document in Evernote. So I created simple Evernote document, basically describing all the things that I might help with. And I reached out saying, hey, this is the program, right? Then I asked, have you ever worked with have you ever hired a consultant or marketing agency? That was my kind of feedback. Next one, if you were going to hire a consultant, what could be the best outcome of that engagement? And basically, I asked also a question like, if I were going to, to suggest you my consultant services, would you be up to it? What might be the red flags or concerns you might have around this? So I did this initial round of outreach. Yeah.
Just to confirm, but don't mean to interrupt, but was this a series of emails? Like you sent kind of one email first saying, here's what I can do, or was this all in one email?
It wasn't even email. It was LinkedIn or Facebook or Twitter outreach. So it was a direct message.
Got you. Okay. So the big thing is you look for the people that were most engaged based on the score in MailChimp, and other providers can also do something similar, I'm sure. And then you export that. You actually then went one-to-one to each person and messaged them. So this takes me to my next question, because I love what you're saying here, which is that I want to ask you about value versus volume, right? I think for a lot of people, their goal is they want to generate more leads, but they know or they've experienced that it can take a while to go from initial outreach to turning somebody into an actually not even a paid client, but just even to get a meaningful conversation going. And so they have this feeling inside that they have to reach out to many people all at once, right? Which is the volume approach. And because of that, they can't customize their messaging because it's going to tens or hundreds of people all at one time. And then the flip side of that is you do kind of what you did, which is one-to-one, which allows you to customize, but it takes a lot longer and you can't reach as many people. How do you kind of feel about each of those approaches? Is there a time where it makes sense to go and just use the volume approach where you're reaching out to many people all at once? Or should people always be doing just one-to-one outreach in a very customized fashion?
Yeah, I would say, there are pros and cons of each of these approaches. But the truth is that selling services and especially consulting services is very difficult. If you are no name, or if you are not well known in your community, in your network, the game of numbers won't help you. Basically, you can just destroy the reputation and you'll be considered as a spammer. That's it. You can play the volume game in case if you want, at some point, if you want to create, let's say, mass market info products and start selling these cheap courses, let's say, below $100. And then you can just play the game of numbers. You don't segment your audience. You just sell the same, hey guys, purchase my playbook course, whatever it is, it's just $99 and that's it. In this case, volume game makes sense. If you want to sell professionally, then now you could see the evaluation, how we move towards account-based marketing, right? One-to-one programs. And I did it even with validating my consultant. I always said that you don't need to have more leads, right? This is the motto of our company: less leads, more revenue. So you just need to come out and solve specific issues, right? Or specific challenges and help to achieve specific goals. So it was like, in this case, I was thinking about that company, right? So I just, before sending everything, right, I just created this kind of survey, trying to get the feedback. And why I reached out to 5-star client subscribers, because I knew that they were engaged with my content, and the chances that they will reply back with some qualitative feedback are really high, right? That was my main motivation. So I reached out to them, and my next step was, so for those people who said, yes, potentially we might be interested, I didn't immediately suggest, hey, so let's, just make a deposit and we'll start work or whatever. What I did next, so I just checked their company, right? Tried to find some, at least because in most cases, you can find obvious challenges, let's say bad or weak positioning, right? Bad value proposition, bad segmentation, whatever. You could take a look at their content and immediately identify, the leaks in their content strategy. So I just came up with some practical insights saying, hey, probably this is like messaging is like one size fits all. So it probably doesn't resonate with your target market, right? Because you try to target different segments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then this basically impacts negatively your ads, right? Your performance marketing, your outreach, et cetera. And if you want, that could be a pilot scope for our engagement if you would be interested. So this is what we can work on together. Let me know if it sounds good. So that was kind of validation and personalized, let's say, outreach.
So some people who are joining us right now will be going, yeah, and Andrei, that's, for you, it was easy because you already had these 1,000 subscribers. I don't have a newsletter yet. I don't have a database of people that I have a relationship with. So I can't take the same approach. If you are in that position right now where your goal is to generate more meaningful conversations that can lead to high value sales, but you didn't have a newsletter, you didn't have a list of people who knew who you are, because maybe you've transitioned recently from the corporate world into consulting, or maybe you've been consulting, but only with a small group within your network. And now that's kind of, that referral well has run dry. What would be the best practice? What would you start doing if that was your position today?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, first of all, let's wrap up what I have shared, right? So first of all, I did research as a warm-up play, right? And then I did, let's say, a very soft pitch, saying this is what I know, this is the issue, right? This is the challenge. Also, this is what you have shared with me, and this is what I can help you with, right? Does it work for you? So now at fullfunnel.io, we do the same. This is a part, quite often we use market research as a warm-up play in our account-based marketing campaigns. And just to probably stepping back from consultancy, we worked this year with one Belgian company that is serving very conservative market called HVAC. So these are engineering companies, and they were reaching out to engineers, right? They didn't have audience, they didn't have newsletter, etc. So our goal, we were reaching out to these engineers, asking somehow, of course, the survey was completely different, but we were asking about the challenges, the goals, etc. And then we came back with dedicated content hub saying, hey guys, these are the challenges that you are facing. These are, let's say, the problems that are caused by these challenges, right? And this is how our product might help you. So we just brainstorm some ideas. Would you like to have a call to discuss it? And from this campaign, you can imagine it was done this summer. So we had 50 accounts in Benelux. Benelux stands for Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg in Europe. So we had around 50 accounts in that campaign. And they generated 22 sales opportunities out of that campaign. Pretty good example, right? Without any audience. So coming back to your question, if I was starting right now from scratch without audience, basically I would do the same play with market research. But in this case, the question might be, well, whom I should ask, right? I don't have these connections. So I would find any kind of community and then join this community. I'm building community since 2017. And what I learned one lesson the hard way that can be applied to any community. In any community, you'll always have 90% of lurkers. These are people who, join the community, but they never engage. You never see them. Yeah. Then you have 9% of people that engage time to time. And then you have 1% of active members, those who comment, ask questions, do the roundtables, meetups, webinars, produce the content in general. Yeah. Right? And the truth is that you can become an active member really fast. So all you need to do is just introduce yourself, connect with other folks, right? Answer the questions, basically start participating or engaging with all the conversations, all the threads that are happening in that community. And you bring the value, right? And then the next step is connected with community admins and basically asking this question, look, this is what I'm going to do. And basically, would you be up if I will reach out to folks from the community and ask these questions? I want to validate, my consulting idea. Does it make sense? Mm-hmm. And maybe, your community members, maybe you can recommend to whom I should reach out. That's the first step. The second one is that you can, again, you have your knowledge, right? You can pack it in slides and then suggest an exclusive webinar for this community. And you'll get the first traction, right? You'll get these first people. But after you did the engagement, lots of people want to skip this engagement step, which is crucial.
Right.
After the webinar, right? Or it could be ask me anything. It doesn't matter what activity you'll be doing in that community, right? You'll have all the signups, and again, you can reach out and do the same research as I did, right? And this provides you a pretty good. First of all, you'll have audience. You'll get actionable qualitative feedback, and you don't need to do anything. You don't need to have website. You don't need to start newsletter. And to be honest, before Full Funnel, I was running a company called Get Leader, and Get Leader didn't have website for almost 3 years. It was just an Evernote page describing my consultant service.
Right. There you go. I mean, that's a great example of showing, there's obviously websites are powerful, great design and brand is powerful, but I think very often people spend too much time worrying about those things and not enough time focusing on other things. And that's, I think, a perfect example of how you can still generate business without having all that fancy stuff. So, and when you talk about communities, how relevant is that for, let's say, the corporate marketplace? If you're targeting, let's say, pharmaceutical executives, let's say CFOs or VPs of marketing in a pharmaceutical company or a manufacturing company or the automotive industry, how have you seen that play out in terms of being able to access those people as part of a community? Is that thinking more about industry associations and professional groups, or is it a LinkedIn group? Is it a Facebook group? Where are you actually seeing that you can get into kind of the corporate executive level people as part of a community?
So let's say if you were in that space, right, and you was as well a corporate executive and you know these people. So basically, I'm talking about peers level, right?
Right.
Then you could create a community. The problem, first of all, let me tackle the first myth about communities. Lots of people take a look at big communities, and again, they think in terms of volume. Revenue Genius in our, let's say, sales and marketing space, 17K members. Oh, wow, this is how the community should look like, right? I need to have 17K. No, quite often the community could be, you need to have micro community, could be around 10 people, and that's absolutely fine. And I have a fantastic example of company that is doing this. So, and your goal, it doesn't matter, the platform doesn't matter at all. And the community is where people, like-minded people are connected, right? So it could be, let's create a WhatsApp group, let's create, Slack if you want, whatever, it could be email community, right? It could be, and then you can say, okay, guys, let's meet every month and just quickly discuss, I will create the agenda, and the goal is basically share all the insights, maybe some insider information in this pharmaceutical space, right? You discuss the laws, whatever, discuss the latest, cases or pop news or whatever that are basically happening in trenches, right? Yeah. And share these insights. And this micro community becomes your core insight, right? Becomes your core source of information. And that's it. This is how you can do it. Right. But now is the problem. Let's say if you were not connected to these people, right? Then, and I don't know, let's pretend I was a random marketer at some unknown startup, and now I want to bring CMOs from Kimberly-Clark, Coca-Cola, Apple, whatever. It would be extremely hard. So in this case, I would say that you won't be able to skip, unfortunately, the authority game. So in this case, you need basically, what I do in this case, I try to set up kind of podcast like you're doing. We also have our podcast at Full Funnel. And I would call it, let's say, the pharmaceutical CMO or whatever. Yeah. Pharmaceutical CFO, doesn't matter. And I would be reaching one by one to these people. Again, trying to find some community, trying to do some guest posts as well, just to gain this authority, right? And then step by step, every time I meet a guest, I do the preparation, right? Yeah. I try to come up with really good questions, not basic generic ones. And I'd also analyze the network of that person on LinkedIn. This is available, right? And then you could simply find new connections that you want to be connected with. And after the interview, the goal, of course, to make a good job, right? Then you just simply ask, hey, by the way, I noticed that you're connected to John Doe from company X. Would you mind to connect me? I want to have him as a guest, and as well, whom you would recommend to be a guest on this podcast. So I'd be using this. That's, again, one by one. I know this is like lots of folks unfortunately say, well, but this is not scalable. It's scalable, but it scales after a year or two. And then it scales, it becomes a snowball. You'll be mind blown.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
The other thing too, Andrei, I completely agree with you. So our approaches are very aligned. What I often share with clients is that I think the belief that you need to have a lot of people doesn't make sense when you actually look at what your revenue goals are for, even for the year. Most consultants and consulting firms don't need to land hundreds of new clients on an annual basis, right? You just need a good group. And so you don't need to go after hundreds of people all at one time. You can go after, in your case, as you mentioned, like the HVAC example of 50 core accounts. And from that, if you generate, 10 clients or whatever, 5 clients, that might be hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in business. And so sometimes thinking small is actually thinking bigger because you're able to generate greater results from a number of people that you can be more customized to. I want to ask you about your 6-part plan, or kind of your 6-part process that you talk about. I'll get more to that in just a moment. Before we do that, I think one big question that often comes up when people are starting to reach out to new prospective clients and kind of do their outreach is within one organization, sometimes they're not 100% clear who the actual decision maker is. Maybe it's kind of, by like committee. Maybe it is one key person, but they're just not clear. Should I be reaching out to the CFO, the COO, the VP of X or whatever? In that case, what have you found as the best practice? Does it make sense to reach out to more than one person at an organization all at one time? Or do you do just one person and see if they respond? How do you handle that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic question. And look, if you are prospecting let's say SMBs, then in most cases you won't have a big buying committee. Or let's say if you are prospecting micro businesses or small businesses, startups, in most cases you'll have CEO who is a champion decision maker. Basically, he or she wears all the hats, right? Maybe there would be a technical co-founder or whatever. If you are prospecting mid-sized companies, then you might have 3 to 4 buying committee members. And the higher you are going, the more people will be involved in the purchasing decision. So let's say if you are prospecting mid-size or enterprise, right? You'll be always dealing with the buying committee. And what works really well is not prospecting the decision makers if you don't have a common connection. In most cases, I would say, try to leverage existing network. Whenever it's possible, ask for an intro. Whenever it's possible, that's the best possible way to do it. And this is also the power of the podcast, right? As you said, I mentioned it. It shouldn't be also the podcast. It could be, content collaboration, whatever it could be. So the lowest hanging fruit to start kind of engagement with these strategic accounts, right? To get acquainted with them. So the next step, if you have 0 connections and you just analyze your network, you see that you don't have common connections, right? The thing that works for us and for our clients is always reaching out to champions, not to decision makers. Forget at this point about the decision makers. So let's say in most cases, we are reaching out to marketers or PR department. The reason why, because it's very easy to connect, right? Mm-hmm. They are always ignored. Everybody wants to get the attention of CEO, CFO, whatever, right? So you are reaching out to marketers, let's say, and I'm saying, hey, you know what? I will just describe our campaign. So at Full Funnel, we have Full Funnel Show, our podcast. And we split the engagement. So I'm doing interviews with well-known market and thought leaders, while Vlad, my co-founder, interviews top executives from our target regions, from Benelux and United States. Mm-hmm. And the way how we are doing it, how we are bringing these people to our show, is that we created a slide deck for marketers, right? And in most cases, and I know this from corporate world as well, marketers are in charge of PR, right? Any media coverage. So basically, we're helping them to get this, to hit their quota. So we reach out and say, hey, this is what we have launched. These are the guests. These are the topics. And basically, we are following you guys. Of course, you should always come prepared. That's why I am against any volume game, right? So you say, okay, I saw this recent news about your company. And do you think, let's say, I don't know, John Doe, let's say, would be a good fit to talk about this, right? Mm. This is how you can identify the decision maker. As well, I was wondering who's in charge of this, right? So we could basically kill 2 birds with 1 stone. And then you start connecting with these people and not always, but in most cases, you'll get feedback, right? This is, again, keep in mind, I mentioned this a couple of times, peers engagement, right? So they say, okay, marketers are reaching out to marketers, so that's fine with them. And they're eager to help. So always reach out to champions.
I think that there's a key lesson in here, which is the instinct that many people have is reach out to try and sell, right? Or even the mindset is all about sales. And your approach is you're not leading with sales. You're leading first with connection. You're leading with something very specific about what's going on in their organization. And you're kind of then looking for opportunities or validating who the actual decision makers are that you can then move that conversation forward or have on your podcast or use. So I think that's a really great approach. I have a few more questions for you before wrapping up, and I wanted to touch on your 6-part process just at a high level, because I think it's very interesting to see how you approach campaigns from kind of the B2B marketing side. So you start off with awareness, then demand gen, demand capture, activation, client success, and expansion, right? So can you just talk very briefly, like even 1 sentence on what each of those are and why in that order?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is what you have described. We call this framework full funnel marketing, right? And let's say we can touch my example. We can chat about my example, right? You could reach out to everybody, and what you'll be doing if people will ignore your message. That's right. The first one. The second one, keep in mind that you'll always be a beggar, right? You'll beg for a meeting. Would you like to have a call with me? I can help you with this and that. But you're no name. You have 0 credibility. Keep this always in mind. And there would be always a question. You could just, you can just analyze your inbox, and ask yourself, how many cold emails did you actually reply and had a call with people?
Yeah.
That's the first thing, right? So in most cases, you could always keep in mind that people are not looking for a consultant. If you're talking about consultants, in most cases, they are not looking for consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they don't clearly identify their need. They don't probably know they have a specific challenge, right? They know that, let's say in our case, they are not hitting revenue quota or they are not generating enough meetings or whatever, but they don't really know why. That's the problem. And your goal is basically create this awareness, right? That you exist and you can help with solving these challenges. So that's the first step. And that's why we have this. It could be done. We already mentioned several, right, tools. Could be newsletter, guest posts, podcast, community engagement, market research, etc. So that's the first one. Lots of consultants talk about themselves, right? They try to brag. They tend to say, I need to post my pitches. No, absolutely. If you want to get attention, if you want to create awareness, you need to talk about something that resonates with your audience. And basically, we used to call it, we create a document called Map of Informational Needs. You need to understand what exact topics, what exact challenges they might be interested in, and then basically start talking about this. Pretty simple. So and then you could potentially even manually distribute this content. If you want, let's say, play our one-to-one play, I would reach out to you saying, hey, Michael, you know what? I just posted this, basically why consultants are struggling to generate meetings. Was curious to hear your thoughts, right? And I share your LinkedIn post. I don't say, go to my website, fill in the form or whatever. And this is how I attract your attention. Again, you won't have 100% positive, reply rate, but some people will engage, and this is how you create awareness. Next one is basically creating demand. And I believe there are lots of talks about personal brand, and lots of people mass personal brand with hanging out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and posting all the day long and engaging with all the content. That's definitely not personal branding. And having, hundreds of thousands of followers is not equal to your bank account. I always, one thing that I always say, I learned it from Matt Hines. He always says, you can't pay bills with followers or likes. Right. That's absolutely true. So for me, the only way to create demand is basically sharing how you can help with solving specific challenges, and basically sharing your case studies. Even let's say you are starting out, you can share case studies from your corporate career, right? And this was my initial approach. I didn't have clients, so I talked about the challenges that I solved at Kimberly-Clark, with the results, with the process, etc. So this is the way how you could create demand. And next, again, you could just rely on passive inbound requests because you'll be getting them. Or you could do proactive social selling. This is what we are doing. So, but in this case, I would say, hey, Michael, you know what? I checked you're doing this, let's say, marketing consulting, whatever. And I recently published a case study how we helped one consultant company or one consultant to generate 100K in revenue by leveraging LinkedIn demand gen. Was curious if you have a spare minute to check that case study and provide me feedback, right? Again, you won't be getting 100% reply rate, but there would be people that will be, replying back and saying, hey, absolutely, that's a fantastic case study, love it, right? So, of course, you need to provide as much details as possible. This is the way how you create demand. Don't have the scarcity mindset that I should, keep all the secrets for myself. No. The more you are sharing, the better results you'll see. Yeah. And demand capturing is actually when they reply back, I want to learn more, right? Then you could say, in our case, what we used to do, I say, look, if you want, right? And this is the activation part. I say, if you want, I can share with you I have created a content hub that actually includes materials on how to grow your consulting business or whatever, just a random idea, right? Sure. I can share it with you. Or as well, if you want, next week we can plan a call. answer your questions about this and also share some ideas how you can apply this case study to yourself. Let me know if you are interested. And again, I'm not saying, hey, this is a link to my calendar, or do you have 20 minutes next week to hang out with me? I'm saying, like, I have some ideas how you could apply this framework, and I can also answer your questions.
Right.
Let me know if you are interested.
Would you like to talk about that at that point? That's all you're doing.
Exactly.
You mentioned the Content Hub. And I think actually I first heard you talk about the Content Hub when I heard an interview with you and Charles Gaudet talking about that. That to me was very interesting. Can you just describe, because when people are hearing you talk about, this Content Hub, just very briefly explain, like, what is a Content Hub? Is it something that people log into? Is it a website? Is it a folder? What's the actual structure of a Content Hub? Yeah, absolutely. So you have, again, if you want, you can even create it in Evernote or Notion, just making standalone notes. But the problem is that Evernote and Notion won't give you analytics, so you won't see content engagement. So that's why we prefer to use software like Paperflight or DocSend. If you want, I just share, let's say, very accessible software, so not very expensive, because there is Uberflip. So you said Paperflight, yes, Paperflight and DocSend. These are my two recommendations. Okay. And the goal of this software is basically for every single account that we have engagement, we create a dedicated content hub where we put the content that is relevant to their goal or to their challenge. As you know, we have produced lots of content, right? And I've been on multiple podcasts as a guest, did lots of talks before the COVID. Now these are, of course, virtual talks. And my goal, instead of saying, if you want to learn more, go to my blog and check my podcast and check my YouTube channel, it won't work, because people will come, they will see the variety of content and they will lose attention. So the goal of the Content Hub is putting exactly the pieces of content. So you create this individual content path for your prospect, right? So in our case, let's say we create several sections. I would say section 1, right? Case studies on scaling your consulting business. If we'll discuss that example that I was reaching to you, right? And then I would put some interviews, let's say, on growing your consulting businesses from that point to that point. Case study with consultant A, case study with consultant B, right? Could be 3, 4, 5 more interviews. And these are practical case studies. So people say, oh, yeah, indeed, this works, right? And then I would put the second section. In our case, it's always working with fullfunnel.io. And for now that, again, keep in mind that if you're prospecting mid-size enterprise, this content will be shared in-house inside the team, right? So we add several documents. The first one is benefits for CEO, and we describe what are the benefits they might get of working with us. The next one, the benefits for marketing team. And the next one is benefits for sales team, because sales are usually, in our case, they are influencers or blockers. But they are 100% influencers. Whenever there is discussion about account-based marketing, it's a game for two teams, right? For marketing and sales. Right. So sales opinion is always asked. And that's why we created a separate document explaining the benefits and also adding testimonials from sales people of our strategic accounts, right? So quick question for you, Andrei. So within that Content Hub, right? So people could almost imagine it as you go into a special kind of portal or website that you've set up for them. And then there's going to be different documents in there, or audios or videos that you've kind of curated and selected. Some will be case studies. Others will be kind of these reasons. So it's almost like an opportunity for you to deal with objections before they come up.
Exactly.
As well as to provide a lot of value that would help that person to move down the kind of the buying path to become more comfortable and increase trust and authority and all that. My question for you is, your experience, what percentage of clients that engage with you or clients that engage with your clients, how many of those, like what's the percentage that actually use that Content Hub heavily? Like, is this a critical part of the buying process, or is it just something that you'd use because it's important, but you also have a lot of people that don't actually do much with the Content Hub, they'll still end up engaging with you?
I would say, we have cases when clients, they attended a bunch of our events, read our blog, were following us, and they don't need this. They come and they say, okay, guys, that's time. Let's start work. We know how you can help us. Let's start work. But even in this case, we create a dedicated Content Hub for them, because if, let's say, executive had this buy-in and trust in us. There is an house team, and we don't know what do they think about this engagement. So let's say marketers might be afraid that consultants are coming, we might lose our job, So we want to overcome all these concerns and objections beforehand. And then we say, okay, before we'll have a team call, would you mind to share this content hub? And then we have, it's completely different. In this case, we don't sell the program, but we explain the benefits and how the collaboration will look like. And we also explain that for marketers, we are not going to replace them, but basically we'll help them to achieve their goals. And these goals will be defined on the first call, right? And then we'll be working together as a team extension. That's the key. So anyhow, I would say that content hubs are mandatory part of our process. So even if if we don't use them in the activation process, anyhow, we are sending them. And the best part about the software that I mentioned, Paperflight or DocSend, you'll see the content consumption. So let's say I shared it to you, and then I see you checked case study with company A, right? And then I see exactly the page, and probably the page was, I don't know, let's pretend how to create a case study to activate strategic account. And then I would say, hey, Michael, so wanted to hear your feedback about my content hub. And by the way, quite often after sharing these case studies, I get a question like how to create a case study to activate strategic accounts. If this is also a question you might have, let's book a new call and I might share it, I might explain it. And if I know that you shared this content inside your organization, right? I see new people that are coming from your organization by email domains, right? So I would say, okay, and if you want, bring Charlie or John or whoever, right, to that call so we can just discuss this. Yeah. That's the way.
Yeah.
That's the huge benefit.
I could definitely see how powerful that is, being able to see what they're looking at and what's getting their attention and then bringing that into the conversation. Very powerful stuff. I want to be mindful of your time, Andrei. I know it's getting late for you in the evening right now for your time zone, but just to finish off, because if I don't ask you, people will be emailing and saying, Michael, Andrei didn't talk about the 5th and 6th. So the customer success, the client success, and then the expansion. Just very briefly, could you explain what those are?
So we have this hourglass, right? And the truth is that the real relationship starts at this point. So you want to help your client to get maximum out of your product or your service. And at this point, the biggest problem that I'm seeing, lots of companies tend to think that all their clients are happy by default, which means if they are not complaining, they are happy, they are satisfied, which is not true. Right. And your goal at this stage to do several things. First of all, tracking the satisfaction, because if the customer won't be satisfied, you won't be able to renew the contract or to get paid for a new retainer, right? Next one, you won't be able to get a testimonial, case study, or let's say referral. That's crucial. The second thing that you need to be doing at this point is embedding in-depth customer interviews. This is crucial because this is a way how you could learn, why did you select me, not another company? With who you compared me, right? What are the values you are getting of this engagement, right? How were you selecting the vendor? What your research process looks like? What are the most crucial factors that influence your decision? What are the red flags for you? These are the most important questions, and you should host it. The more interviews you'll be hosting, the better you'll understand your ideal customer profile, the better you'll be able to update your positioning, value proposition, etc. These are crucial parts. And as well, if you know that clients are getting value of this engagement, right? They're getting results. Your goal is to talk about their further goals. Let's say if you are selling, I will give you a practical example. If you are selling to mid-size or enterprise, right? And they have distributed teams. I'm selling to a branch in Vancouver, let's say. I would say, look, so we have this fantastic engagement. Do you think that we could potentially launch the same campaign in Toronto, right? Or in Montreal, in Ottawa? And you get a feedback, yeah, that might be good. Would you mind to make an intro? And basically, if you're up to it, can we record a case study with you? And now you kill two birds with one stone. You start your podcast with a new case study, very actionable, fantastic, right? You have video content, you could repurpose it and create, let's say, written piece of content, and you get an intro to the same company, right? You don't need to do any lead generation. And you come and you say, hey, John, meet Andrei. He helped our team to do this and that. These are the results. And this is our, let's say, podcast. Check it. Right? Yeah. And then you start this engagement. So it's way easier. So this is crucial, right? This is what client success stands for. And expansion, exactly this campaign that I have described. This is the last step. So client success is tracking satisfaction and embedding in-depth interviews to understand better the decision-making process, right, at your core customers. And finally, expansion. When you know they are satisfied, you could ask for referral, you could ask for testimonial, for case study, for intros, etc. So these are steps 5 and 6.
Yeah, I mean, that expansion part is so critical. I know Andrew Sobel has some very good writing on that topic around kind of client development and so forth. So Andrew, before we wrap up, 3 kind of rapid fire questions here for you. When you look at your day-to-day, what are 1 or 2 things that you typically do, like a consistent habit that you feel contributes to the success that you have, the energy that you bring, just allows you to kind of, operate at the level that you're able to?
Yeah, so there is one crucial thing that I'm doing every single day, LinkedIn demand gen. And what does it mean? Every day I post the content. We have specific framework for this. We call it LinkedIn Outbound Marketing. Potentially can link it for your listeners. So I post the content. I do the engagement the way I have described, right? Reaching out sometimes manually to some strategic accounts. And I also do engagement with my peers and some strategic thought leaders. And I do it every single day. And remember when I mentioned I didn't have website for Get Leader for almost 3 years. So my core website was my LinkedIn profile and a link to Evernote that described my consulting services.
Right. Yeah.
So,
quick question on that. Do you plan out what you're going to write about the night before or like weeks before, or do you just kind of sit down in the morning and decide what am I going to talk about today on LinkedIn?
Usually every Friday I plan the content for the next week, but sometimes I have backlog of ideas. So if some idea comes to my mind, I just add it to the backlog, and then on Friday I just structure it. The reason why it works for me, because almost every week I'm featured at different podcasts, and I always want to help my fellow podcasters to promote it. So I just schedule it. And that's as well. We produce new content. We have lots of events. So that should be planned.
And then how about in the last 6 months, what's the best book that you've read or listened to? Could be fiction or nonfiction.
I would say I would refer to the recent book I'm just finishing right now. It's a new book by Dory Clark called The Long Game, and it's very good for consultants. I highly recommend to check it.
Awesome. Yeah, I had Dory on a live stream the other day. She does great work. So, and then finally, Andrei, where should people go to learn more about you? What's kind of the one resource or one place that they can learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, fullfunnel.io/blog, where they can access all the articles that we have ever published, or just open LinkedIn and type Andrei Zinkevich, and you'll find only one bold Andrei on LinkedIn, so you won't miss me.
I don't know if there's only one bald Andrei on LinkedIn, but maybe Andrei Zinkevich, and it'll be very similar for Michael Zapersky. I don't know of any of Michael Zapersky on the planet, and certainly not one with my hairstyle. So Andrei, really great to have you on. I enjoyed our conversation, and thanks for sharing some of your wisdom and experiences with us today.
Thanks a lot for fantastic questions. It was a fire chat. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.